I know we're a bit late for this one, but you know what? We just had to do it for the simple reason that I believe I have skin in the game. Why? Because I am part of the Harry Potter generation. Okay? Grew up with it, read everything, and now, well, just like everything, I believe the whole thing comes full circle. Um Now it's time for a reboot, and they're turning it into a TV series. So yeah, I know a lot of things are coming in, but why don't we check it out? Okay, so here we go. Oh, and before you do, thanks for liking and subscribe. Merlin knows we need it. Okay. Wait, do we have the audio on? Yes, there we go.
Finally, the trailer for the Harry Potter HBO Max series is here, and we get to see
Interesting.
people freaking out. Not out of excitement, but out of social outrage. They're freaking out all over social media, all over YouTube, all over the place. Yes, the latest Harry Potter series is embroiled in controversy and has been for some time now, well before the trailer. It's your standard culture war stuff, so naturally the internet.
Alright, this thing is gonna be a bit rough because the culture war was just mentioned. And I know for a fact that there's a ton of controversy regarding Snape, but you know what? Let's keep on going.
Is winning, as always. If you wanted to know what it would be like to have a black Snape, look no further.
We're about to
Dark
find
Force
out.
Toys, Snape the Black Wizard playset.
Launch the spell!
Fire the light up staff for a real spell blast.
Doors open!
Bust through breakaway doors, smash the
Holy crap! Oh my god! That is not a good look for James Potter and the rest of the Marauders. For the simple reason that what else could be the reason why they're bullying Snape in school? It's not a good look, alright? I know we have the Philosopher's Stone. I honestly can't remember which installment it was where they showed that flashback where James Potter and the gang Sirius, uh Wormtail and well, Padfoot. No, Padfoot. No. Padfoot was. You know what? We're, we're gonna have to look up who were the Marauders. I mean, who's win the Marauders when they turned into their Animangus form. But Sirius is Padfoot because he turned into a dog. James Potter turned into a stallion, if I'm not mistaken. Wormtail because Wormtail Peter Pettigrew turns into a rat, and their werewolf Remus Lupin. Sirius Wormtail, Padfoot, Prongs, Padfoot and Prongs, well, Marauders map, blah 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 blah. But anyways, not gonna be a good look when they're bullying a black kid. Because what else could be the reason? I honestly can't remember which installment it was. If it was Chamber of Secrets, this one, or even the Prisoner of Azkaban. Was that it? Was it in the Prisoner of Azkaban? Where Harry accidentally went into Snape's pensy, but him um being bullied by James Potter and the Marauders. But anyways, comments please.
storefront and grab the loot.
Harry Potter joins Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, Marvel, and well, you name the IP and it's probably balls deep in the culture war. Each
Yes,
of
it
those
is.
properties has
Okay.
undergone a modern audience facelift. You know, that thing that was supposedly dead. We were supposed to be out of the modern audience era and be sitting firmly in the slop era. But Harry Potter's
Here we are.
showrunners stepped up and posed the question, is it too much to ask for both? For major cultural footprints like Harry Potter,
When
being in the
I
middle of the culture war isn't
Hold up.
exactly news.
Every time I see this new kid, I'm so sorry, you guys. I just have to put it out there. He looks like Hannah Gadsby. That lesbian comedian from that Netflix special, the Netflix special. Right? Every time and a lot of angles, he honestly looks like a lesbian. I mean, he looks like me at a certain angle, but come on, this is Harry Potter. He honestly looks like a lesbian.
As illustrated, it's pretty common to have something beloved be fought over politically. It's 2026.
Yeah.
It's what Western society does.
I mean, the Nazis tried to recruit holy crap, did I just forget the name of the author of the Lord of the Rings? Tolkien. They tried to recruit Tolkien. They tried to the Nazis at least tried to confirm his Aryan or his whiteness, and he told them to screw off in his reply letter.
But Potter is unique because it's being
We have the same style. The only thing missing is this scar on my forehead. But I just can't see it. He looks like a lesbian. He reminds me so much of Hannah Gadsby.
shit on by both sides of the aisle. While franchises like Lord of the Rings and Marvel have more straightforward culture battles, Harry is either Nazi propaganda or progressive nonsense with zero room for nuance.
There we go. Nazi propaganda or something with zero room for nuances.
Let's take a look at both sides of the aisle here, beginning with the left
Thankfully.
and what their problem with old Harry is. For starters, if there's one thing they've made clear over the last several years, it's that J.K. Rowling is public enemy numero uno. Did she write a bad book? Sabotage her own franchise creatively? No and no. So
no,
what did
I remember there was this other professor, and what he did, it's like, the whole ball regarding, J.K. Rowling being a bigot was already rolling. And I remember, he asked out a student, outright, they tried to have a conversation about this, that what makes J.K. Rowling a bigot? Because, all of his students were saying, she's a bigot, blah, 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 blah. But they couldn't really point out they couldn't really point out that one particular thing that made her a bigot.
she do then? Why, she stepped outside the approved script on gender ideology, obviously. That doesn't just lead to attempted cancellation.
I mean, she is, at a certain point in time, the richest woman in the world. She doesn't need anyone's approval at a certain point. I mean, there's a reason you think, someone like Bill Gates would be worried that he got implicated in the Epstein guest list? Of course not. She doesn't need, J.K. Rowling doesn't need anyone's approval, especially, if she believes she's telling the truth, which is, only two genders. I mean, I believe that was it. But, I still remember that particular bit of that professor, what actually made her a bigot. And they simply couldn't point it out. Because they knew for a fact that, the whole propaganda went rolling for the simple reason that, she just doesn't accept some opinions regarding the gender war thing. So, yeah.
It leads to harassment campaigns, boycotts, and constant death threats. It was more exorcism than criticism of her, basically. Rowling was more than wrong. She was fucking radioactive, according to the left side of the equation.
There we go.
You'll be hard-pressed to find the point in what people were trying to accomplish, though. It's like the internet tried...
Hard-pressed to find the point, because they simply couldn't, point it out what made her a bigot. The campaign was in full swing, that she's a bigot, she should be cancelled, blah, 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 but she doesn't need them. She doesn't need anyone's approval.
To separate her from the very thing she created, to make it their own instead of something that came out of her mind. Like Harry
Look at Ron Weasley. They look so androgynous. They both look androgynous. Like, Harry Potter reminds me of Hannah Gadsby. And Ron Weasley, I don't know if it's, looking at the effect of the first one, but he also looks like a lesbian.
Potter was indeed magic.
There I go, say.
Just manifested himself.
It's like there's like not a single hint. They're both boys, but there's like not a hint of masculinity. Hold on. If you can find it. See, even when they're crying, see, that's the whole point. We know they're both boys. That's why. But the thing is, the way they look, they're like not a single hint of masculinity. So, I guess it's that
unbelievable
that they were specifically chosen to cater to the quote unquote modern audience.
Annoying too. One of those situations where people have to put up a disclaimer and express disdain for Rowling before expressing affection for the series. And the most
there we go. They have to what's happening now is they're trying to separate the artist from her art. Like, for example, we have Michael Jackson, right? He has a movie coming out, but he has had a very questionable history with minors. So, I guess to justify themselves, into actually trying to watch this thing, or being a fan of this particular show or series, is that they're going to try and separate her from her work. So, is that a thing? Can you actually do that? I mean, for example, whatchamacallit, Cthulhu, uh, Call of Cthulhu, and all of that other, what was his name? Hold on. Anyways, author of Call of Cthulhu, renowned horror writer. Wish I could remember. Sorry, I just dropped it. Ever since the pandemic, I have been dropping things like that. I have known that author's name my entire life. I have been a big fan of my entire of his work in my entire life. But for some reason, after the pandemic, things drop out of my memory every now and then. Like it's definitely something's definitely wrong, and I believe it only started during the pandemic. Like for example, apart from J.K. Rowling, you've got Tolkien. And I had to literally dig up rack my brain just to remember them. But I've known them my entire life. But anyways, Call of Cthulhu author. Crap, comments please. But anyways, here's the thing: can you separate him because from his work, being that he is a well-known racist dickbag? I mean, I guess only time will tell. And right now, what they're trying to do is they're trying to separate J.K. Rowling from her work. That they're trying to basically rationalize or trying to justify it within themselves that yes, or at least to the at least to the public in general that I enjoyed the Harry Potter book, I enjoyed the Harry Potter film, but I hate J.K. Rowling.
Performative way possible. Actors who were in the movies tiptoed around her name like a minefield or just straight up condemned her entirely. The hate train was painfully in sight when Hogwarts Legacy launched, like it was a cultural litmus test or something. According to progressives, you couldn't buy it, you couldn't stream it, don't even acknowledge it exists, damn it. If you supported it, you were basically supporting Rowling's views. That was the mindset of these people.
But that's the whole thing. They honestly couldn't point at what exactly made, Rowling a bigot.
They wanted to punish the franchise itself into irrelevance for Rowling's crimes. That didn't happen, of course. Hogwarts Legacy exploded to massive sales and huge player counts, steamrolling the entire conversation. The gap between online discourse and real-world behavior was hilariously out of step with one another. As it turns out, most people are not living their lives through the lens of ideological enforcement. They don't cross-reference a consumer purchase against a fucking political checklist. They think Harry Potter game equals fun. Fast forward to the HBO series that's about to drop, and we're repeating the exact same thing as before. Calls for boycotts, declarations of the franchise being dead, attempts to shame people out of watching it, but most people just see the franchise for what it is, a wildly popular world about magic, friendship, and growing up. Before continuing, a quick word about the sponsor of today's video. And as always, if you watch the ad, you know I love you, baby. There are a lot of VPNs out there, but today's sponsor comes highly recommended. CyberGhost VPN. With CyberGhost VPN, all your traffic goes through a secure channel, and your IP address is hidden and your data encrypted. And what do you use it for? Well,
I'm sorry, I just remembered! Call of Cthulhu was written by H.P. Lovecraft and a ton of others. We even played video game about him. Sorry, ever since the pandemic, memory drops off, about the things that I have known for my entire life. Just, goes off for some reason.
Let me explain. There are all kinds of geo-blocked content on streaming networks, especially Netflix. For example, I'm a big WWE fan, and in America we have to have 4 different streaming networks to watch all the content, but everywhere else around the world gets to watch it in one location. Well, with CyberGhost VPN, you can bypass all that crap and skip right to the good stuff all in one place. There are also a ton of other movies and TV shows you can access that are outside of your region by using CyberGhost VPN. From Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus, and it works on 40 different streaming platforms. What's even more important than anything, though, is that CyberGhost VPN protects you against hackers and data brokers who want to sell your info online. CyberGhost's 38 million users have made it one of the most highly recommended VPNs on Trustpilot. Over 21,000 people have rated it with over 4 out of 5 stars. And one subscription can be used on up to 7 devices, so you can share with family and friends. With my link in the description, you can get CyberGhost VPN for just over $2 a month, which equates to over 80% off. And a 45-day money-back guarantee, so you've got nothing to lose. Thanks to CyberGhost VPN for sponsoring this video, and now back to it, baby. Oh, by the way, this space isn't reserved exclusively for criticism of the left. The right is going pretty insane about this television show as well. How so, you might ask? 2 words. Black.
I like how he juxtaposed both sides. So, this whole thing looks like an entire critique of, well, at least both sides' problems or both sides' issues with regards to this, a whole new thing.
Snape. There's heavy criticism towards the show for its perceived DEI initiatives, specifically with replacing Hermione with a person of color along with the iconic Snape. The left naturally cries racism
Snape. Okay.
at such criticism, and the right claims they want it to stay true to the source material, because Snape was, indeed, white in the books. There are plenty of examples, thanks to Nerdrotic for compiling that and making this section a breeze. And naturally, Twitter is blowing up over all this, with the right criticizing the show for race swapping and pandering, and the left crying transphobia and demanding boycotts.
Transphobia because it was written by J.K. Rowling, so I'm assuming there was nothing transphobic with the trailer itself.
Twitter's on fire lately, and the left in particular is going absolutely nuts. The Verge posted an article declaring there is no ethical consumption of HBO's Harry Potter series, with author Charles Pulliam Moore saying that J.K. Rowling has made it abundantly clear that she will continue using her fortune to harm transgender people. Another Twitter
See, that's the thing, right? Going back to that professor, I'm talking about J.K. Rowling. She would continue to use her fortune to harm transgender people. I honestly doubt that she said that personally, that she will use her great wealth to the detriment of one particular demographic. Like this one. If you watch and support this, you are funding trans genocide globally, by the way. I mean, at a certain point, right?
User got 1.3 million views for saying, if you watch and support this, you are funding trans genocide globally, by the way. Or how about YouTube channel The Surfs saying, if you're paying money for Harry Potter, you're a bad person. You're saying to the world that racist wizard and witch stories are more important to you than trans people existing. Or another user getting nearly 100,000 views for saying, I was once as much of a cringe millennial Harry Potter fan as any of you. I skipped school to see the movies come out back in the day. But I can promise that if you watch this
what they don't understand is that, you know what, at a certain point, to a certain level, their opinions simply mean nothing. You know, they're trying to be hurtful, like, you know, people calling me chud, whatever, or, you know, you're a chud. Here's the thing, the insult, like, you know, goes above their heads. Like, I promise you, if you watch this new series, I will see you as a massively selfish, pathetic loser. It seems like there's this everyone's entitled to their own illusions, that, you know, of how they see themselves. But guess what? To a lot of people, her opinion doesn't matter. I mean, 90.5k views, but so what? People will watch it.
Series, I will see.
Because you know what? They would rather watch, because, you know, her opinion of other people doesn't matter. I mean, people won't care. If I get the opportunity, I'll definitely watch it. And so what if she, you know, thinks of me as a loser? Honestly, doesn't matter.
You as a massively selfish, pathetic loser, and I won't be the only one. Up to you, tee-hee-hee. Damn, there's no one I want to impress more than Rachel fucking Gilmore. Back to the new HBO series in the right's comments.
Wait, that was her name? I didn't even like read her name.
Race-swapped characters are a regular thing in the modern era, and sometimes it's met with criticism. Other times, it's actually not whatsoever. So is the criticism justified in this case? Are race-swapped characters all part of a behind-the-scenes political and social agenda? And if so, does it actually affect the product? To come up...
Here's the thing, right? A friend of mine said that the new Malfoy looks like he's gonna get his head dunked in a toilet by the old Malfoy. Like, you know, the old Malfoy will basically, you know, force the new Malfoy into self-deletion through bullying.
Up with an answer, I say we take a look at recent history. Let's work our way backwards, starting with The Batman and the casting of Jeffrey
like two lesbian best friends.
Wright as Commissioner Gordon. It's one of those rare cases where the internet briefly revved its outrage engine and then kind of forgot to keep going. Yes, there was pushback. There always is some. The phrase race swap is enough to make a lot of people simply check out. But compared to other casting controversies, this one barely registered above a mild fart. Probably because Gordon isn't a character whose identity is rooted in cultural background or lived racial experience.
Oh,
and
yeah.
they thankfully didn't seem...
Oh my god! I just realized now that he's pointed it out. they turned Commissioner Gordon black for this Robert Pattinson version of the film. I honestly didn't notice that. I honestly didn't notice. Because, Gary Oldman was Commissioner Gordon in the Christian Bale trilogy, but now that he's pointed it out, like, oh my god, they race swapped Commissioner Gordon, and you know what? I didn't even know. This is the first time I realized it now that he pointed it out that the new Commissioner Gordon is black. Because I believe there's this rule in theater or in film that you can use non-traditional actors for one role as long as that particular actor or actress can fulfill that role. So me personally, the whole Black Snape thing doesn't really matter. So as long as he can like perform the role. But yeah, now that a lot of people made a big deal out of it. I think the whole these issues were pushed to the forefront. I mean, this whole Black Commissioner Gordon thing didn't even notice. Now that he's pointed it out.
Interested in applying that to his story, thus updating him for a modern audience. No, Matt Reeves skipped that entirely, thank God. In fact, his casting was more in line with making Gordon and Batman the superhero equivalent to Brad Pitt and Morgan Freeman's duo in the movie Seven.
There we go.
Whether he's played by a white actor, a black actor, or anyone who can convincingly look like they haven't slept in 3 days, the core of the character.
I remember that meme joke, why does Batman keep half of his face uncovered? To let the police know he's white. I mean, that's the meme.
Remains untouched. That is an important distinction because when race swapping doesn't interfere with the essence of a character, the audience tends to care.
See, it doesn't interfere with the essence of a character. He just put it out there, didn't even bother to mention it. And now, see, old Gary Oldman during the Christian Bale series.
A lot less. And in playing the role,
the Robert
Wright
Pattinson
didn't just
stories.
Do fine. He nailed it. His Gordon felt grounded and quietly worn down.
There we go.
Less the traditional mustache-twirling comic book cop, more a believable partner to a young, obsessive Batman. There was a natural
He was a tired police officer.
Chemistry there, an unspoken trust that made their alliance feel earned rather than obligatory. And just like that,
that's the whole thing. We didn't even notice. There wasn't even a big deal about the whole thing.
Conversation died. Simply put, the performance spoke for itself. The quality of the portrayal rendered the initial skepticism irrelevant. This is the pattern you'll see repeated. Initial resistance followed by a collective shrug once the execution proved solid. In Wright's case, the so-called controversy didn't just fade. It got replaced by acceptance. Now, for many viewers, he is Gordon. Which, if anything, exposes a truth. Audiences care less about race swapping in theory than they do about whether it actually works on screen. Because now we're going to
actually work. Yes, that is it. Oh. But here we are. I mean, oh my god. When people started pointing at it, that's when we noticed. Because if I remember correctly, like, for example, right, the new trio, to me, they look like children. They look really young. And now, when I think about it, the original trio, Stent, Emma Watson, they were kids when they did this. Yeah, but anyways.
Take that same idea and flip it on its head. Not every race swap lands with a quiet shrug and eventual acceptance of something like Jeffrey Wright's Gordon. Sometimes it just feels quite simply forced. Enter April O'Neil in Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. Yes, I'm using this as an example. The Seth Rogen produced animated reboot that decided, for reasons no one can clearly articulate.
I remember there was this issue regarding Velma, Mindy Kaling's Velma. People couldn't understand what it was all about.
That April needed a complete overhaul. Like Gordon, April's race was never some sacred pillar of the character. She's not exactly defined by being white, so that wasn't the issue at hand. The problem is that they changed more than just her appearance. They changed everything. The personality, the vibe, man. It's pseudo-April. It's April in name only, wearing it like a borrowed pair of underwear. Instead of the confident, capable reporter, or even the plucky investigator we've seen in past iterations, this version of April is reimagined as an awkward, bumbling, borderline incompetent teenager whose defining trait is projectile projectile vomiting under pressure. That's an actual recurring gag in this stupid-ass movie. So now you're left wondering what exactly was preserved here, because it sure as hell wasn't the spirit of the character. This is where the whole thing starts to feel less creative reinvention and more like box checking, because because
it's definitely box checking. Because the April O'Neil I knew was, competent. That's how she found the turtles. But if this one was projectile vomiting, was meant to be a comic relief, and they just turn her black so we can check her off on this list. Turn her black and lesbian so we can check her off this list, and here we are. It feels forced.
People love to say the race of the character doesn't matter, then why go out of your way to change it? Especially if you're not going to keep anything else intact.
There we go.
You can't argue that these traits are interchangeable and then simultaneously overhaul them to the point where the original character is unrecognizable. When a race swap works, it's because the core remains untouched. When it happens like this, it feels hollow. Like the change was the whole point, not the character themselves. Audiences can smell that crap from a mile away. There's also this weird hyper-specific trend that people have started to notice, what I call the ginger side of Hollywood, where the Irish have no chance. For whatever reason, if there's a redheaded white character on the board, that's the one that gets race swapped. Not the blonde, not the brunette, always the ginger. It's oddly consistent to the point.
Is it because of the lack of their souls joke or something? I mean, I guess they're just swapping one minority for another. But have gingers ever been considered as a minority? I mean, I don't think so. They can be like the butt of all jokes or something, but I don't think they were considered to be a minority. But here we are. Guess they were the safest option.
Point where it feels less like coincidence and more like a pattern. You saw it with The Little Mermaid and Ariel. You saw it with MJ in the MCU Spider-Man trilogy, whereas Zendaya's version is so far removed from the classic Mary Jane Watson that they had to sidestep it by calling her Michelle Jones. I mean, hell, just take a good look at that graphic again. Remove the how dare you change this mentality from the equation entirely, because the real question is, why is it always this specific type of character? Why do redheads seem to be the most expendable template? It creates this strange impression that Hollywood sees them as placeholders, like they're the easiest to swap out without pushback, but at some point people notice patterns. I'm surprised the casting of Ron Weasley escaped the race swap, and they chose to go with Hermione instead. But now let's head all the way back to the...
It could be the start of something. That the brunettes and the brown-haired characters will be swapped out.
90s, when this convo was completely flipped 180 degrees. Let's take a look at 1997's Spawn. Long before today's debates about race swapping, Hollywood was already experimenting with it, just in the opposite direction. In the original Spawn mythology, Terry Fitzgerald is a black character. And he's not some background character either, he plays an integral role. He's Al Simmons' best friend, the man who marries Al's widowed wife. Basically, he's a key emotional anchor in the story. His identity is baked into the world and relationships around him. But when the movie came along, despite being faithful in casting by featuring a predominantly black cast, they made a very deliberate change. Terry Fitzgerald was played by D.B. Sweeney, who's, as you can see, white. The reasoning at the time wasn't subtle. There was a clear concern that the film might be perceived as too black, and therefore less commercially viable to a mainstream audience in the 90s. But fans absolutely hated the change. There was real pushback, and it wasn't quiet. Todd McFarlane, Spawn's creator, had to answer for the change in his own comic book fan comments section every month. People called it out as inauthentic, as a portrayal of the source material, as an unnecessary deviation from a character that didn't need fixing. You know what you didn't hear, though? Anything about a culture war framing of the situation, and definitely no moral grandstanding.
Now, here's the thing, right? Twitter and, social media didn't exist in the 90s. So, maybe that's it. We simply have a platform where people could voice out their stuff. Anyways.
The criticism was simpler and sharper. It was about fidelity and respect for the material. It was about not changing...
There we go. Fidelity and respect for the material, not, about some perceived trans genocide or something. That's the main issue that they were fighting about. Is that the fidelity to the material, Right.
something integral for the sake of perceived marketability. Back in the 90s when this happened, it wasn't about identity politics. It was about arguing that an adaptation should actually resemble what it's adapting. I think this example shows that this debate didn't suddenly appear out of nowhere. It just kind of evolved. The core frustration has always been the same. If a character works as written, why change them at all? But let's say we strip away all the culture war noise. What are we left with? Well, we're left with a much simpler question. Does this thing even feel like Harry Potter? Based on the trailer, the answer is not really, and it has nothing to
At that particular point, I guess it would depend. Because this could be the Harry Potter for the next generation. I mean, Radcliffe, the old trio is, far long gone now, and millennials are raising kids of their own, so this could be the one for the next generation. The question is, in which direction?
do with the casting debates. It's about tone.
I mean, have you ever been surprised by a film that you saw as a kid, or you saw when you were a teenager, and then now that you're older, you realize that it was just a remake? I mean, did Gen X or Boomers ever complain that the new film that we saw when we were kids was different or something?
Atmosphere about whether the adaptation understands what made the source material work in the first place. If we go back to The Philosopher's Stone, that book is light and whimsical. It's honestly pretty magical. There's a sense of wonder baked into every page because you're discovering this world alongside Harry. And as the series progresses, it earns its darkness. By the time you get to the later entries, the tonal shift feels natural. It grows up with the audience. The films followed that trajectory almost perfectly, starting with The Sorcerer's Stone. Bright colors, warm light.
I mean, as a guy who actually read the first installment of Twilight and 50 Shades, just for the sake of telling myself that I didn't prejudge the book, and it was written for someone else. It was written for a completely different audience. They didn't have a dude in mind. But I'm definitely gonna watch it. This one, at least a couple of episodes, see what it's like.
Lighting, that sense of childlike awe, but year by year things get colder and more serious. The series evolves.
Yeah.
But this show looks like it's skipping that evolution entirely. Right out of the gate, everything looks muted and kind of lifeless. It has that flat, desaturated look that screams HBO Max prestige TV, like it's trying to be the next Adolescence or Game of Thrones instead of Harry Potter. Right off the bat, that's a fundamental misunderstanding of the material.
I guess we'll see at this particular point. With regards to this opinion, we'll see.
If you start dreary like this series is, where do you go from there? What's the escalation? You've already burned through the tonal runway before the story even begins. It does ironically look faithful on a surface level, the sets and costumes, the adherence to book details, but it's the kind of faithfulness that feels hollow, like checking boxes instead of capturing a feeling. And this show's already doing a lot of box checking, I see. It's like proof you can follow the book beat for beat and still miss the point entirely. The magic is quite literally absent. And finally, what about the Black Snape situation? What do we think about that? Is the left correct? Is the right correct? Are they both wrong? Is it something in between? Well, the black version of Snape isn't just another interchangeable swap like a couple others we've talked about. And that's exactly why the reaction has been sharper. Snape's identity in Harry Potter, his whiteness, is tied heavily to how he's perceived. Pale, sallow, greasy, hook-nosed, looming. He's written to be unsettling in a very specific, almost gothic way. That visual feeds directly into how characters, especially...
I honestly forgot. I mean, the only thing I remembered is greasy hair and hook nose.
Kids like Neville fear him. When you change that visual language, you're not just updating aesthetics, you're altering how those dynamics read on screen. And yeah, there are some uncomfortable implications that come with that shift, whether people want to admit it or not. Neville Longbottom's greatest fear manifesting as Snape. So now you're telling me his greatest fear is a black guy trying to kill him? And what about Snape being strung up? That might land a little differently.
Yeah, Marauders are gonna wear white hoods or something.
Don't you think? Once you make a change like this in today's Hollywood, there's a strong track record of the adaptation then leading into it, making race part of the character where it wasn't before, reframing scenes and rewriting dynamics. That's what people are bracing for. So when you see pushback or even mockery, it's a lot more than just blind outrage.
Probably.
There's a logic behind it, even if it gets exaggerated online. And at the end of the day, right or wrong almost doesn't matter. Because the bigger truth is, the culture war angle isn't going anywhere. This is just the latest Battlefield. Thanks to everyone over on Patreon who supports me. I really appreciate you guys as always. Make sure to check that out for more reviews and video essays like this one, as well as my second channel, Cynic After Dark.
Ooh.
GG's. Fucking bitch, bro. The fuck you laughing at Weezy?
Again, you guys, thanks for the like. And, well, subscribe! Merlin knows we need that magic, alright? Bye!